You ready?
Yeah.
You join me in the pledge, followed by a moment of silence for our veterans, first responders, and our medical heroes. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Roll call, please, Lori.
Majewski,
Here.
Pittsburgh, Strauss,
Here.
Reinhardt,
Here.
Fitzpatrick,
Here.
Hoagland,
Here.
Haskell.
Here.
You looked over the agenda, and if so, could I have a motion to approve it, please?
I'll make the motion to approve the agenda as presented.
I'll second it.
Moved by Dale, seconded by Jeff to approve the agenda. Discussion? Roll call?
Majewski.
Yep.
Haskell,
Yes.
Hoagland,
Yes.
Fitzpatrick,
Yes.
Strauss,
Yeah.
Reinhardt.
Yes. General public comment. Anybody out there have any public comment?
We are not seeing any new comments coming in other than people working on some audio issues on their end.
Okay. Okay, we're to the budget discussion. Tracy, do you want to start off?
Sure, I have a memo to read to you and with some recommendations, and we'll pass that out as soon as I am done reading it. Contrary to what some believe, the situation with the county budget is not entirely my burden. There have been many facts that have led to these shortfalls. Our MERS retirement, in which costs increase each year at no fault of the county. Workers' compensation has increased due to increased cases which have needed to be paid out, and loss of revenue, specifically contracts that reduced the revenues in which expenses were not adjusted and stayed the same. These are just a few examples. In addition, we've entered into lease agreements knowing the fund balance was in decline, and we've replaced employees knowing the fund balance was in decline as well. We need to start working together today for the better of the county and work toward a solution rather than pointing fingers. We have all contributed to where we are as a county today. With that said, I would recommend offering health insurance for 2 years to at least 3 employees eligible to retire as an incentive to retire. In a short calculation, the cost saved would be roughly $100,000 a year. We cannot replace these positions. Departments would need to restructure their operations and cross-train to fulfill work requirements. We cannot do an early out retirement to employees that have not met the years required, as we would be required to make up the difference in the lump sum payment. Lay off the last 2 people that were hired into the county, saving the county roughly $80,000. Again, restructuring those offices to do more with less. Lay off the payroll clerk for a savings of $44,000. Lay off one of the part-time employees at the animal shelter for a savings of $25,700. Eliminate the cleaning contract, $84,000, and pursue a modified cleaning schedule of bathrooms and hallways. Eliminate court security, but keep in mind that bailiffs would need to be needed for the courts while it's in session. I'm not sure what the cost savings would be with this, as it would be contingent upon the hours they would need to staff the courts. Leave the prosecutor's office as is. With the recent vacancy, there would be a savings of $60,745. Again, we need to do more with less. These costs would be a cost savings of roughly $420,000. I realize that these are costs for an entire year and will need to be calculated for the remaining 5 months of the budget year. The above mentioned items would be in addition to the board discussion items recommended for cuts today. This is a start and needs to be done today.
Good ideas there.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And then I provided you, there's also a list of the items that you had wanted to talk about on the back page. That one right there.
I got one.
Thank you.
You got more, Tracy?
I've also laid on your desk, the project, for employees that have been furloughed and what the savings are for a 2-week period. 13,365.48 for 2 weeks, and then I've also given you the list of the expenditures with the 10% cut that was requested.
So these are proposed furloughs? These,
Those are people that are on furlough.
okay. Full furlough or partial furlough or
You'll see on the
where it talks about the hours?
second column, yep, so that's how many hours they've been cut per pay.
Okay.
So 37.5, or 75 would be full furloughs. You don't have anybody that's on a full furlough, but you do have some that are on 37.5, which is equaling up to a full-time employee.
Anything else? Okay, thank you. Okay, who wants to start out some additional on the budget discussion?
Well, the recommendations that are out there, you know, some of the recommendations I had and I forwarded to the board, Tracy's got on there as well. I think they're good recommendations. I think we need to walk out of here today with some meat on the bone. We need to do something and pass something today. I guess when we look at the employee furloughs, now these are people obviously that are rotating in and out. There's nobody strictly straight off.
Except for Dawn, hers was, we have 3 part-time people that are off completely.
Okay, so who on this list, if you weren't rotating out, well, I guess the list doesn't, I'm not sure if that's gonna make much of a difference, to tell you the truth, on the employees. I mean, technically, we really can't say which employees to lay off anyway, so. What we can do is go through and take some of your recommendations, some of my recommendations, put them together as a package.
What
And
about the recommendations that the elected officials sent to you guys last week? Did you not get those?
oh, under this letter,
Yeah, the memo, yeah.
yeah, there's some that are on there that have creed,
Okay.
some not. But, yeah. And put a motion together and move forward with the process. By no means are we going to solve the whole problem that we have with this initial cut, but I'm sure there's gonna be future moves, so unfortunately.
Any chance we can get a copy of that one you had there, Lori?
Sure, I can ask my staff to send it, sure.
Yeah,
I read
thank
it
you.
on the computer, so I didn't have a copy in front of me. We'll send them something on the airport there.
Okay.
Yeah, maybe that you would like to.
That lady?
So Jack, would
Kim
you
Dewey
like,
in my
would you like a
office.
motion?
Kim
Or
Dewey
what
in
would you
my
like, I
office.
guess, to move forward with this?
There were 2 public comments.
Or do we still wanna comment on, or do we still wanna discuss it between the board?
Well, I think we ought to take a look at all the suggestions and then we'll make the motion, do you think?
Rudy added a comment mentioning that 2 part-time clerks from animal control are off completely.
Yeah, they're on that list.
Okay, so they are off then,
Yes.
okay.
They have the two secretaries that work out there are off completely right now. And then they also have some kennel workers that have, reduced their hours,
And
which
Tracy,
are on that list.
would that document be available for people to review after the meeting if they're,
As far as furlough,
yeah,
yeah, you can have a copy of it.
okay, because we have a couple people asking for it, so maybe we'll just ask them to send you an email for it.
Sure.
Who all we got watching today? Is it a great long, big long list, or can you share it?
We have 65 participants.
Holy cow, yeah, big group.
Well, I'm assuming these would be part of record of the meeting minutes if somebody wanted to look at it.
Yeah.
I mean, just,
I don't typically, put attachments on the minutes.
okay.
Otherwise, the minutes would be as big as the agenda.
Okay. I just wonder if there's somewhere it might be easy for somebody to find us, either through our website or something, some of this type of information.
Probably should have been attached to the agenda so everyone had it that wanted it.
Now Tracy, with some of the suggestions that I had listed here, the suspension of all travel, is that happening right now when we
Yes.
did pass something like that? So there's no travel at all? Even if you've got a county vehicle and you're driving to Grand Rapids or Detroit or whatever? I
No,
mean,
that is happening.
That is happening.
That's not accurate. You guys just approved travel and expense yesterday that was out of the general fund.
What was the travel expense that
With
was?
Carl Hauser. Was out of the general fund.
This is
I
a
believe that
grant.
was paid for through the grant.
But that isn't
From
what
the
you
notes
asked. That isn't what you asked. It's been travel and expense that have been approved out of the general fund.
I think we understand what I'm talking about.
Well, everybody out there might
Yeah.
not. That's trying to make clarification.
The, so then there are people that are going through this, because there are costs absorbed through using fuel,
Mhm.
vehicle maintenance, and all that. Are they mandated services that they need to do, or?
I know the one is, I don't know of the others if they're, and I'm not aware of other travel besides that one person.
What's everybody else's thought on that?
You don't have I've seen it on I had it on my phone, your suggestions. You
Yep.
don't have a copy of it, do you?
Yeah, I
This
gave
was right
you
here.
that.
Oh, you did?
Yep,
Yep.
it's
Oh,
the
it's,
last page of my memo there.
oh, I'm sorry.
Here,
Okay. Yeah, these are the ones.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
I'm just wanna make sure that if there's a motion to be made, we're not doubling up on, something that we've already approved.
no, we did, I believe there was a motion on the travel,
Yeah.
hiring freeze.
A complete hiring freeze, even if it's to replace a person,
With the
Remember-
exception of the sheriff's
with the
department.
exception of the road patrol. Right. Okay. And then all non-mandated spending, has that come to a halt? Or are we still spending?
What's mandated?
Or it is-
What are you calling mandated?
As far as something that's required, to fulfill a mandated service to the,
That's pretty vague, so.
I mean, we're still having to pay contracts, we're having to pay leases, we're having to pay all of those things. But if you're talking about supplies and stuff like that, yeah, it's pretty much,
Okay.
I mean, you could tell by the general fund amount yesterday was, what, $70,000?
Yeah.
And that's low. I mean, that's not, it's usually up higher than that.
I mean, with office supplies, or, I mean, if certain offices run short on office supplies, is there a way they can go to other departments in the county to borrow some to get us through this?
They can.
Is there supplies in the supply closet
We do
yet?
have some supplies in there.
Hey Tracy,
Yes.
on this number 7 here, is that 60,000, was that with, Usty Nine, the new attorney? Or was that the girl that retired,
The one that retired.
one retired? Crystal,
Nope. It was an attorney.
no, she didn't retire.
I don't think she
Or-
retired.
No, she left. She
Okay,
quit.
I
Yeah.
get you, all right, all right.
Took another job.
I was wondering.
Okay.
I have a question from-
Good morning. May I ask for some clarification?
I didn't hear what that.
He
I think
needs
that
some
was-
verification.
Clarification.
Ask away.
Good morning, everyone. Under Sheriff Mejanowski. I'm just curious, do you mean corrections as well, not just the road patrol, Commissioner Majeski?
As far as hiring,
Yes, sir.
we had talked about, not touching road patrol. We had talked about not, touching command staff or 911, which would really wouldn't 911 anyways. So it depends on the situation, I would think, to bring to the board as far as corrections.
Okay, we would need to ask for your support to fill the vacancies we have there. Right now, we have 2. Technically, we're down 4 because one was assigned to transport that was never filled, and then we lost the 4th position during the last budget workshops. In all respect, to be honest, that's the revenue maker and the constitutional mandate for the sheriff. So we would need to ask for your support to fill those vacancies.
I guess it was my understanding on the vacancies was that in the sheriff's department, if it was a 1-for-1, if they lost somebody, they could replace them. But for them, the hiring freeze, nobody knew. I guess I was under the assumption that was across the board over there. You're saying that corrections was not part of that?
How many, Midge, how many inmates have we lost since this has all started?
We've lost approximately $25,000 a month in revenue because of it. We try to stay around 50 feds, 20 to 25 SST in a perfect world, preferably more feds. We're averaging about 37 feds and 1 SST right now. The bonus, if we're allowed to fill them, we're still saving money because the people that left were on the higher end, the senior part of the grid. So you're talking entry level versus senior wages and benefits.
Well, I guess we'll have to discuss that at a later meeting, other than this one.
Okay, well,
So-
we're doing backgrounds
I guess
right.
we'll have to-
I'm sorry, I'm cutting out. We're doing backgrounds right now to fill those positions. I think we're at a crucial point. You almost have to look at it as an investment. If we don't have the staffing ratios for the feds and DOC to be content with that, to keep getting the amount of volume that we get for the future, we need those positions filled to bring in that revenue. Otherwise, we may lose more revenue, and I don't think that's something we need right now.
You know, if I remember right, when the DOT was in here, they said we have to have a certain number of people to be able to staff the jail. So I don't know what that level is. I don't know if they have any extra or whatever, but we have to let them staff it to a serviceable level to meet DOT specs.
Mr. Chair, if I may, when they came, they initially thought no less than 5 COs per shift. However, they have since come back and said they would prefer, and they're going to start pushing for us to have 6 COs per shift. We're already short. If we don't fill these, we'd technically be down almost 7 to 8 COs. That's like 2 full shifts. that's not safe, and we're not going to be able to bring in the revenue we normally bring in without that staffing level, just maintaining, backfilling what we're already down.
Mitch, with
Yes.
the potential cutback in courthouse security, are there any of those that can be utilized in there?
Depending what you guys decide to do with that, if you go with the initial cut the screening station, that's about $30,000. What happens there is that's a pool of part-time deputies that cover that. So it would depend how you did that with court security. Because that amount wouldn't equate to one full-time for the jail.
Well, I think we're gonna have to let them fill it. I guess someday down the road, you're gonna have to face the fact is the cost starts to outweigh the benefit. So you guys will deal with that down the road, but in the meantime, we're gonna have to allow them to staff it to meet DOT specs. Not extra, but to meet DOT specs. Agree? How many more guys you gotta hire to meet those specs?
Technically, with the loss of the one that was assigned to transport, we didn't fill. We lost one during the budget workshops. There's two. We currently have 2 openings from people leaving. That would be 4. If DOC comes back and says they want us at 6, that's another 4. That puts us at 8. We're only asking to fill the 2 that have recently left just to keep minimum, actually, the bare minimum of keeping our folks safe and able to bring in the revenue they bring in for all of us.
I believe the discussion at the time, and I could be wrong, was that we figured they were pretty much at a minimum staffing over there. And that's why we said a 1-for-1. If they lose somebody, we automatically give them we're just saying you can replace that person. But if there was any increase, if they were asking or looking at hiring anybody over and above that threshold of the minimum staffing, then they had to come to us and ask for permission, or for additional people. So what you're saying is right now, 2 to kind of get you a little bit more out of the hole, and then, but there's additional people to get back to that staffing level when we discussed all this hiring freeze and from the Department of Corrections, their recommendations, correct?
Yes, Mark, and I understood it the way you explained. 1-for-1 just to stay minimum staffing. We're down on the road as well. And the thing about the jail right now, one of our shifts, if we have to take an inmate to the hospital and transport them, if a CO leaves, we're in violation.
So as long, right now, unfortunately, we're down people, but that is a cost savings to us, I mean, in a sense, but as you fill these positions, you would essentially fill up to the level we were at. When was that discussion? 6-8 months ago, a year ago, roughly?
Yeah.
You would get back to that original level.
Right, just backfilling, Mark, like you said, because there's no way we can take additional feds when all the COVID stuff's over and do what we normally do if we're not compliant staffing level wise. First of all, it's too dangerous for our staff, and DOC and BOP could have an issue with our staffing level. So we just need to backfill. And as you explained, we're also saving money because of the different pay rates.
Now, I know this was a little bit of a contentious thing, we talked about at one of the meetings, and that was the additional vacation for the officers during this COVID thing. My concern is how are we going to cover that? We collectively passed that. We've got a lot of vacation that's going to want to be used by these guys in the next year or so. Just trying to think ahead. How do we factor that in with our staffing level and try to cover that? Because was it a half an hour for every hour worked?
Yes. Basically, it becomes indefinite comp. Mark, all the units, the union bargaining units had agreed to waive. If it creates overtime, management would have the right to decline the time off. If it's something that is granted and for some reason we were short-staffed, we would more than likely have to tell them no, burn it at a later time. But again, it's indefinite. If it is something we could swing, the jail administrator and the assistant jail administrator may have to work the block to give them their time off. So we've got it all factored.
Okay. I just wouldn't want to get in a situation where we were short again on people, so as long as they're willing to, I like the idea that it was indefinite, so they know they don't have to use that in the next year, they lose it. It's indefinite, so yeah, they can work it in easy. We wouldn't just have 5 guys all of a sudden say they want to take their comp time and leave us really shorthanded.
Right.
Okay. All right, well, I guess we're going to allow them to, Phil, to meet the
Replace the
requirements.
2 positions?
Yep, 2 positions. You know, with that said, that Maxima study that we did here a year ago, I think you're gonna find that's gonna be heading south. So that is not gonna hold up how much revenue they're bringing in. So anyway, all right, we got the corrections solved.
I think so. Is Midge good with that?
Yes, that's the minimum. We'll try to get back on track and keep you guys informed as things evolve. Thank you for the support.
Okay. Courthouse security. We're moving it back to where it was, to the hallway.
When did we first start the check-in point? Was it 2 years ago?
Yep.
Yeah.
Well,
Move it back to its original state.
Which is, of course,
Which is
None of that.
basically the.
No metal detector.
No metal detector, nobody at the doors. All you have is, court bailiffs or whatever you wanna call them, corrections.
we're not voting on these, we're just discussing.
We're discussing them right now, and then we should probably put some type of motion together to
Cleaning contract.
What about a suggestion that I don't know if we have to put it back out, RFP, if we wanna change this, I think we might have to. But what happens if every office takes care of their own office? The garbage they put into the hallway, and then we get whoever, AWOL or whoever the services be, take care of the bathrooms and the hallways and the garbage, that's it. Well, what would that save us by that?
I don't know, but I do believe we could look into it. That was one of the concerns with cutting the cleaning contract that I had was, being able to get trustees to come over here and do some of the work, because we've had problems with being able to get trustees in the past.
Yeah.
They just haven't had enough.
Well, if we leave it up to each department and to each office to take care of their own office, then we really wouldn't need other than cleaning the halls and the bathrooms. Now, I'm not quite sure what that curtails as far as bringing the shirts for. I know Jack had concerns over having inmates in the courthouse and that.
Well, my concern was is in the offices.
Right.
But I guess if they're not gonna do it, they're just gonna clean the hallways, that would be a different issue, but,
well, the next question that goes along with that is all the supplies, vacuums, things like that. There may be additional items that are gonna be needed by the offices.
There would
Some
be-
stuff may be able to be shared, but other things, if you have, the way it is right now, you got a crew of people, they move around the building and they take the stuff with them. If each one's taking care of their own, how do we make sure that, there's enough vacuums available or whatever?
Right,
I
because
just
all the
wanted- yeah.
supplies that are here are theirs.
That, yeah, all the supplies were included in the contract, so that needs to be figured into, probably not a lot, but it still has to be figured into the cost of the departments doing their own cleaning.
trouble with the inmates being in here doing any of that, and I'm just throwing this out there, somebody could come in here during the day and leave something for them and let them know, hey, you looking behind the bathroom seat or something.
Yeah, there's all those, sketchy areas. I agree. I don't think they should be able to go into any of the offices. I just think, yeah, that will be a no-go situation for cleaning, purposes. One thing, if they come over and they help somebody assemble a piece of furniture or something, where they're in there for a limited amount of time, they're in there for a specific, task and they're being watched, but yeah, you're gonna be limited to seeing that.
Well, we would have to check, you'd have to check with AWOL and see if they would be interested in cleaning the hallways and that, and what it would cost us. Okay? Dale?
Who are, okay, your first recommendation? Health insurance to the 2 people, there's at least 3 eligible for retirement. Are these 3 people interested in this? If-
I don't know. There may be more than 3. I just, recommended that we give them that option, and if they choose to do so, then,
Here's the thing, we can't offer them a retirement, and then we gotta replace them. That's the thing.
Nope. yeah,
You couldn't have 3 people retiring out of the same office either.
No.
you know.
we're not.
Well, that's gonna have to be cleared with their supervisor.
Yeah,
Can they let them go?
right.
Because if, again, if we let somebody retire and the department needs them and they've gotta replace them, then we've lost. That's not a very good deal.
Right, it doesn't make no sense for us
No.
to offer somebody a retirement, cover 2 years or a year or whatever it is of their insurance. And then we gotta turn right around and hire somebody to do what they were doing. I mean, the people that we offer the early, retirement to would have to be someone that that position can be, eliminated.
She had it in her suggestion there that it wouldn't be replaced, so it'd have to be attention upon that.
Yeah.
So the supervisor or the elected official would have to make the decision whether to let that person retire or not.
If the commissioners put together a retirement package, we know exactly what you can afford, what you can manage to offer to all the employees. That way you don't have a bunch of employees making an offer of different things. You decide what you can afford as a county, make the offer, and we'll see who takes it and discuss it with the department head as to whether they need to be replaced or not.
Right,
Well-
I could see going a year, I can't see going 2 years with healthcare. Tell you the honest truth.
Well, the savings, what would it be, like
With those-
$110,000 for 2 years to pay $5,000 of insurance
Well,
a year?
those 3 people that I selected, their total wages came to $140,000.
A year?
Yep.
And their health
And
insurance?
their insurance was roughly 36.
Significant savings.
So you're looking
So
at
that's provided that they're healthy and they don't have any issues that put a burden on the insurance program. Correct.
You don't want to discriminate against them because of their health.
right,
I
but
wasn't doing that, I'm just looking at.
throwing it
and
out
they
there.
might also be responsible for paying their portion, just like a county employee would.
Right. Right.
Well, again, it's hard for us to put a package together if we don't know whether the supervisors are going to agree to it. They need to work that out and then come to us. And we would say, we'll give them a year's insurance, but, I don't know where the 3 are coming from, but every department head in all these months of talking are saying they can't afford to lose anybody. So how can they lose anybody? And if they don't replace them, they're gonna lose people. So in order for us to put a package together, we have to show a savings, and it would be a substantial
Tracy
savings.
just showed the savings.
But if you got those people to lose, then weren't they vital employees?
Well, maybe they're gonna retire anyway in the next year or 2 years. So they're going to retire anyway.
And
But,
The kicker is if they can't replace them.
right.
That's the elephant in the room. Anybody can retire at any time they want.
And we don't, without an offer, we don't know who wants to accept the offer, for the department has to discuss it with their employees and the board. So the first step would be to make an offer, see who's interested, then discuss it. Tracy, you agree? Make an offer. The employee can say whether they want it or don't, discuss it with
Because
the
you make it
department
more than
heads.
3 people.
With the full understanding that they can't replace if the department loses that person for early retirement.
Is it legal or appropriate to have different packages for different people? I mean, are we saying we have to have the exact same package across the board for everybody? If one person says, hey, I'll take early retirement, do 1 year, and the next one comes along and says, well, I won't do it unless you give me 2.
Well, see, I think you
I
need
don't
to be
think we can
consistent
complicate
with
it
what we
that
do.
No, I'm just,
Oh, I think you gotta be consistent.
You gotta be
too.
consistent.
that's fine, I'm just,
Uh,
I know other places that I work, which is different than the county, different people got different packages to retire or whatever, so I'm just throwing that out there. It does complicate it, but it may help the situation of who's willing to go, who we can afford to lose, how much we have to pay them, whether that person's gonna have to be replaced or not.
I mean, when we started this process a month ago with the potential, if a person wanted to retire and take the package, and you went to the department managers to see if anybody was interested, we had, 2 people interested, and that was out of the clerk's office, and that the only way they would accept it was if there was 2 years of insurance on it. So I don't know where the third person come up.
You just said those were just people that you thought were eligible. They hadn't
Because I
necessarily come to you and expressed
I
it.
thought that we already worked through this process and we at least had a number or something, if somebody was interested, then we could work on a package. No sense in working on a package if nobody's interested in it.
Well, if you offer a package, people might consider, say, oh, that sounds pretty good. I don't know what the resistance and.
What's the package?
If
Just
we
the
Right.
insurance for 2 years?
If we offer the package and then the supervisor said, no, I can't lose them, we're kind of in a hole there, then we've got a conflict. So we have to,
No, it's up to the department head, whether they say they can lose someone or not, if they're not gonna replace, but
so
at
we're,
least you've made an offer to everybody across the board, and it might spark an interest.
Maybe that wasn't a good suggestion, offering the early retirement. I don't know. I mean, maybe we should just go through and do the cuts and the suggestions we had talked about in the past and as of lately, and let the department heads figure out how to manage their department with what money they have. That's gonna be the easiest way to do it, I think. And the less.
You've already had us ask our employees, and we've asked them, and gave them a deadline, you guys go back and forth constantly, do you
Yeah,
not
this
wanna
is a
hear?
working
Right.
situation. It's, nothing's put in granite. It's a working situation.
you gotta remember over the last 6, 8 months or a year, we've been told by department heads that they can't cut employees.
Yeah.
And so,
So you don't wanna try?
What we need to do, our responsibility here is to make sure that we can balance this budget. And our end of it is the dollars and cents. The department managers and the elected officials end of it is managing their department with what funds that we provide.
Correct.
That's for those.
We can balance it, Dale, but we don't have any funds.
Right. So as far as we're talking about layoffs or retirement or something like that, that's a decision that's gotta come from the elected official or the department head.
And you might get more people.
Really, I mean,
Well, I don't think that's that bad of a motion.
But if an offer goes on the table, nobody's saying that if the employee accepts it, that's already a done deal.
Right.
right.
The offer could be placed on the table, somebody takes it, then we have a chance to really assess the pros and cons of that. And if somebody takes the retirement we pay them, let's say for a year, but then we have to replace them, but then the new person coming in has to have insurance. Plus, the only difference would be the difference in their pay scale, which, yeah, at the end of the day, would end up probably, when you do the pluses and minuses, would cost us more.
Right, but if we look at, let's say, I mean, the big ticket was the 10% reduction in each department. If we look at that, and then the department head goes to their people and says, listen, to fulfill my 10% reduction, would you be willing to take a retirement? And if they said, well, possibly, then that's when the board could get together and say, this is what we can offer.
Okay,
You understand? You understand what,
I do.
what
I guess I would support, paying some insurance for the retirees. Yep. They're not replaced, but
yes.
I would want that pretty clear. Did you get?
I already
everything?
got one, yeah.
Okay.
What we could do with the offer would be making it contingent on the department head signing off on it. That way they couldn't be like, well, I already accepted, so you guys have to give it to me.
Well, the recommendation would come from the department head
Yeah.
or the elected official, so it would. This is something that we're offering in response to a reduction in your department. Now, whether someone takes it or whoever takes it, then that's something that the department head works out.
Do we,
Not us.
do we know a dollar amount? I mean, where are we at with that?
The dollar amount is in what?
Is in where we're at, the overall status of the budget and the amount that we have to cut.
Well, the information we got from Jenny, the projected 2020 is, if we stay on the course we're on, our fund balance is gonna be reduced down from 800,000 to 399,000.
In the positive?
And it's unacceptable.
Yes.
Yep.
So what is the goal to, how to build that back up? I mean, I don't know the numbers like that.
The goal is to make the cuts right now to stop the bleeding that we have going on here at the courthouse, to at least stop what Jenny's projecting, which would be a minimum of 340,000 overspending for this year that we're currently in. And if we can do that, then it might leave us in a better situation with the fund balance at the end of the year, and to help us budget for the upcoming year. Our main goal here now is to stop the bleeding.
I understand that. We always talk about numbers and they change so much every day, Dale. And I guess, what is the percentage that we want to go towards it? I'm asking Tracy too, is where we want to be at what, 1.4? Is that what I've heard in the past? Jenny, I don't know if you can hear me or not.
I thought we were supposed to be at 16% for our fund balance, which would take us at roughly a million and a half. So we're way up. We're way up. This is not something that we're gonna be able to do in this budget year. It's something we're gonna have to make cuts and build on.
So what you're saying is you want to find 340,000 this budget year, is the number you're looking
Minimum.
looking for.
Yeah, because actually my conversation with Jenny the other day was that it was gonna be worse than she thought it was. Now she didn't give me a number. I just threw out the last number we had was 340,000. Can we use that as a benchmark, or is it gonna be higher than that? She had told me, looking at everything, it looked like it was probably gonna be higher.
That was regarding the current budget where you have it. So that included the last budget adjustments. There are more budget adjustments that are in this packet that aren't in the system yet. And once those are in, you'll get to see a closer picture. But that's just based on what the budget is currently set on, the revenues and the expenditures. One thing that you have to look into too is I've been on a bunch of webinars with the state of Michigan and the Michigan Association of Counties and all of the other webinars. But anyways, there's been many. And we have to be concerned with state revenues being prorated going forward too. I think May 18th is the next one after the state has their own budget workshop on, I think it's Friday the 15th, and we'll get to learn more to see where we're at with state revenues.
And there's a briefing tomorrow too, at 10:30, and I believe 2, correct, Jenny?
Yes, or is it 1? Hold on, I can tell you. Yep, it's 2, 10:30 and 2, you're correct.
Okay. Briefing with regards to revenues for grant funds, but we'll see where that's gonna go and how they're going to work that out.
We're also hoping that meeting will give us any idea if we're gonna get any reimbursements for some of the expenses we've incurred due to the shutdown.
Well,
Jenny?
You know, I think that, that the reimbursement's gonna be great and it's gonna help us, but it's still an unknown yet. And it's still an unknown when we would receive those funds. So I think what we need to do is concentrate on what we know and adjust at that point. You know, the cuts that we have the potential of making here, nobody said they would be permanent or years down the road or never come back. This is something we have to do to help ourselves. Jenny, the 340, is that a solid number? I mean, we've got to have something here. I mean, even without the adjustments in that. I mean, we've got to have a target.
Where is the 340 coming from?
From you, the last board meeting.
The paperwork that I sent out today would probably supersede that because those would have been based on former numbers.
So then instead of.
So right now, if you look at.
You're saying 403?
If you look at the projected 2020 column on that sheet, the year would, if everything stays on target the way your budget is set, which we know it's not because there's budget adjustments in this packet right here, the number looks like 435,000.
So it's
Can
much
you
more.
you see on that column?
Yep.
Okay.
So then what we want to do, our decision making has got to be based on what information we have at the present time. So we're looking at 435,000. We've got to come up with just a break even.
Right. And as soon as you approve those budget adjustments, I can even give you a more updated one. There is one note on one of them that I was going to ask Tracy about was our liability. There's an adjustment in there to make it even today, but it looked like we might have another payment going out. And that would be something we'd have to look into as well. But I can update as soon as you guys approve these budget adjustments and they get into our system. I can give you another update.
That answer your question, Dale?
Oh, yeah.
435 in the negative.
Yeah, 435 in the negative.
You know.
And again, that's just at this time.
I spoke with a person yesterday that's been in Lansing, and he said, you know, they're in chaos down there too. Anybody that doesn't think this is a serious business on cost cutting is happy thinking. You know, Chrysler's reporting this morning, they lost $1.7 billion in this quarter. People are losing their jobs. They can't get unemployment. And these are bad times. These aren't about making some simple cuts. The state is bleeding revenue. So, and it's getting worse by the day. Look at the paper yesterday. Businesses that have been in Mount Pleasant for a long time are closing for good. These are serious times, folks, and there's no end in sight. It's just the economy is dying. That is our revenue.
Comes from taxpayers.
Comes
Comes
from
from people that have jobs.
taxpayers. So, you know, I don't wanna do any of this, but you're right when you say we have to do some serious things.
Well, the scary part here, Jack, right there in the fund balance, I mean, we don't get something done in a hurry and somewhat correct, I mean, a higher power than us is gonna be ruling no show here.
Was headed south before the virus, so.
Yeah.
Band-Aids aren't gonna work.
So what does the 10% or that 10% give us?
Annually, well, oh, did Tracy went there? About 221,000.
For this fiscal year, or
Yes, it's what's remaining, from what's remaining in our
you said
budget.
220?
221, 406.52.
It's nothing to sneeze at, so.
Okay,
Go ahead, Leonard.
this, letter we got signed by, four people there, they asked what public jobs you have, that's a question we've had in the past. You know, full, like two positions being paid here, I know you have to have a guardian, but what's our thinking on that?
Nothing we can do about it.
You know,
I had a serious discussion about this a year and a half ago. Nothing we can do about it.
what about the airport there, that was a minimal of around 10,000,
Yeah, I don't even know about that.
that was a suggestion there.
Terry, you're from the airport board.
Yeah,
You're instrumental. Why
I don't
you
think
give
it's
us
any
your
secret
feeling?
that the airport was a pet project of mine. I was the one who piloted the multi-government program to save it. But I'm gonna tell all of you right now, if you have to cut that, I get it. I understand. Your job is not enviable. You're in a tough position, and if the airport has to go, it has to go. Everything has gotta be looked at. There can't be any golden gooses that are untouchable. None.
We may not have a restaurant after this is all done either.
Well, and that's a very real possibility, so there would go about 20, almost 25% of our budget right there.
Right.
So if it, and I look at it this way, if the airport goes, it's gonna break my heart, it's gonna be a hole in the middle of Hayes Township, but it won't be forever. That's too valuable a piece of property. Someday, most of us probably won't see it, but someday there'll be something out there. That's a valuable piece of ground. We have it zoned commercial in my township. If it has to go, it has to go. One of the problems is that 12 miles from here, as the crow flies, we have one of the best municipal airports in the middle of Michigan. So at the end of the day, what is it we're actually losing? Compared to what you guys have to do and the things you need to do, if it has to go, it has to go. It's just that simple.
You know, Terry, you're kind of right, a supervisor, kind of right here in this hub. Without naming names, what are you hearing from the business community? How are they setting?
A lot of people unhappy, a lot of people when you start discussions about what's going on in the county, they're disappointed and would like to place blame, and this, that, and the other. But at the end of the day, I think you guys have more support than you may know. People are not going out of their way to call you up and say, hey, pat you on the back and say, hey, good job. But Mr. and Mrs. Joe Average that I talk to understands your job is not, right now, is very unpleasant. They do expect you to do what you have to do. And at the end of the day, it's not that much different than Mr. and Mrs. Joe Average. You can't let expenditures exceed revenue. You just can't. There's really not much of a debate here. At the end of the day, you've got to do what you got to do. It's why you were put in here, and from what I see here this morning, you are doing what needs to be done. I think you need to know that more people are probably sympathetic than you might realize.
If we eliminate the airport, is that a permanent elimination? Is it I mean, obviously the airport isn't gonna disappear if we pull the
No.
$10,000, but how does that?
Obviously, you would need to get in contact with the state. Based on the 1948 charter, when it was given to us, it's a little ambiguous. Things are pretty simple back in those days. The state said, look, we got some land here. You guys want to make an airport, we're going to give it to you, but it has to stay an airport. There's a lot of, today, you wouldn't be allowed to have a document that simple. So I really don't know what would happen. It would need to be a call to the county attorney, I think. What happens if you decide to defund it? It isn't going anywhere. You can't pick it up and move it. The runway's not portable. So what really happens? I don't know.
It was state and state.
I guess what I'm driving at is it would be probably different in people's minds if you defund it and immediately it's lost and it's lost forever versus you defund it, kind of things go mothball, and there's a year or 2 or 3 for the community to decide if, it's still an option on the table, I guess.
Well stated, Mark.
Well,
I mean,
I
are
think,
there
Well
options
stated.
on the table?
That's the bottom line right there.
just to give you some background, the county didn't hasn't always appropriated to that. And neither has the city of, Harrison and Hayes Township put that appropriation in. That's only been going on for what?
3 years?
Yeah, something like that.
Something like that, 3 years.
So it was surviving on its own. It just didn't have any additional to do any upgrades or anything like that. With that said, if the restaurant goes away, the only thing that they'll have coming into there are the hangar leases and the amounts for those. They'll still have some revenue coming in, it just won't be a lot.
So if I was a person that had a plane and I used that all the time and I was concerned about it, and we said, okay, we're gonna defund that, is there, again, I'm just trying to think outside the box, are there options on the table for a group, let's say of, airplane enthusiasts to get together and come up with $5,000 a year to throw into the kitty open? So we're not putting anything out of the general fund, but there's a way that can stay open as an airport. Again, I want to make sure we covered all the bases that if there are options on the table for a group or an entity to want to take it over or to help fund it separately from us, or it only gets mothballed for a year or 2 till maybe the community gets on its feet, or these groups could organize something to fund it. I just would want to do it in such a way that hopefully that you give some options on the table, so it wasn't just an automatic flip the switch and it's done forever, it's gone.
I think this is a poor time to suggest spending money on lawyers, but that's the society we live in today. It might be a good question to ask the county attorney, could it be mothballed temporarily until you get out of this mess? There might be a mechanism in place to do that, Mark. I don't know.
Or if somebody would be, who knows, you never know, somebody stepped up and said, hey, if we're gonna lose it, I'll write you a check for $10,000 to fund it for the
Possible.
next year.
It's possible.
It's always a possibility. Is
Yeah.
that legal? What are the legal ramifications? I just want to look at everything because,
Let's face it, when it closes, if it closes, that'll be a big hole in my township. And it'll start becoming overgrown and reverting back to forest quite quickly. But again, I get it. If it has to go, it has to go. You're not gonna get any fight or resistance out of me.
What does that say, Les, Tracy? with the-
$10,000.
10,000.
Yeah, it's
Does that
minimal.
include
Is
the
there any
revenue
chance
that you
any
get from
business
the
could come in there and carry a commercial
That goes
enterprise
into the
that wasn't an
airport
airport?
fund.
I think, yeah, I think so,
Cancel the
but
hangar
it would
leases.
take time to put that
Rents.
together, Leonard.
Yeah.
It would take a year, maybe 18 months to formulate a plan there.
Jesse?
May Rude made a comment and she's asking, what has the airport restaurant cost the county in the last 10 years? How much revenue have you received from it?
I'd have to look up the bills, but, I do believe the rent is roughly $600 a month, and that goes directly into the airport fund. I know that we had to there was some funds that we had to put into it, prior to the current leasing, but, it is written in the contract right now, anything that goes wrong with it right now, they're responsible for. So, but I can look that up.
Tracy, wasn't there, and I might be wrong, but I remember a discussion or something regarding the airport restaurant, that they took out a loan to do some remodeling and the county backed that loan.
Yep,
What happens if they go out of business? Is the county responsible to pay that
the
loan?
loan has been paid back.
Okay, good.
I just got, word on that just a couple minutes ago.
Can I add one more comment? If the painful decision is made to close it, I recommend that that building be secured ASAP.
Oh, yeah, everything would have to be secured immediately, yeah.
Just throwing it in.
You know, even if you didn't, if the board decided not to do the $10,000, there is still hangar money going into that fund. And there's still a little bit left in the fund. So
Ideally, if there was a way to mothball it.
I don't know why you need to close it. I
Well,
mean,
so you
With
have
this-
I think it
other,
continue to,
you
If you
have
do
other
this
partners that are
10,000,
paying
that would
into.
cause it to close, or is this
No.
just extra money that we put in? to
that's
help
just
it
an
out?
appropriation that goes into that fund.
So if we get rid of the 10,000,
To help
it doesn't
operate.
hurt them, it just doesn't add as much money as it could have been?
It does hurt them as far as, revenues, as far as money to operate.
But should
But,
anything go wrong, they may run out of money rather quickly.
It could. Plus, they have an airport manager that we pay.
There
So what
are
you're
other
saying is there's
partners in that.
18,000 in the fund right
that
now
are
or
paying
something?
money, right?
What's that?
There are other partners with us. that are
Correct,
paying
City of
money on
Harrison
that.
and Hayes.
Okay.
And
Yeah, the
obviously-
reason I brought that up with that committee there, the department heads, elected officials, that was
Yeah.
on their thing, and I said, well, let's put it on the table.
Okay.
10,000 is, it's not gonna,
So
Thing
Tracy,
is, 10 and 5 and
Yeah.
20 and
Yeah.
30, it
That a little
all,
bit helps.
yeah.
it all, I get it, you know, we're doing budget meetings right now, we're looking at everything.
Tracy, does the 10,000 cover the airport manager's wages, or do we pay that in addition to the 10,000?
No, it covers his wages.
It
More-
helps,
more-
it helps. It
But we
just
don't
goes
pay
up.
it in addition to the 10,000?
We just a flat out 10,000 we put into the fund.
Yep, and
We put in
Harrison, and
five,
City
City
of,
puts
City of
in five.
Harrison and Hayes both put in 5 each.
We get roughly 7 from the airport, and then a little bit more from the hangars, a little less than 30,000 a year to run the airport. Put that in perspective, the municipal airport in Clare has a budget of about 240,000.
And they're able to get some funding.
And it's a first-class airport, one of the best municipal airports in the state of Michigan.
So if we stop the $10,000, if we cut that, obviously there's a little bit of fund balance. So there is some time, breathing time to restructure. It's not like,
Yeah.
I'm going back to, we're not flipping the switch immediately. We're just, there is a little bit of cushion there, should somebody step up and wanna
It could continue.
make
to be
suggestions
offered
and
for
move in a different direction and.
Especially if we were very, very careful.
Are there any ways we could look into federal, state grants to help that?
No, that was one of the things that we were looking into. Good idea though, David. That was one of the things that we were looking into with, up to this point, we were trying to get the airport moved from a,
From utility to
basic
municipal.
utility to a general utility, which would allow us to, apply for FEMA grants and other federal grants to help fund the airport and do different things out there. But because we have not been able to upgrade that yet, we're not able to apply for those.
So if it is able to be upgraded, then there would be grants?
Yes.
Hey, Jack,
Okay, anything,
I know we're making suggestions here and things to vote on, vote to cut. Are we gonna put all in one package, or are we gonna just kinda handle one at a time and add up all?
no,
all
I
of it?
think we'll put them in one package and make the recommendations.
Did you guys want to know what the expenses were for the past while on the airport?
Yeah, what were they?
Yeah,
Prior to the authority coming on with the county and the city and the township, it was roughly around $10,000 to $11,000 in expenses. And revenue-wise, there wasn't as much to actually meet that. I think that's why the authority was created, to help offset some of that. After the authority came on, it was in between $20,000 and $30,000 each year.
okay. Anything else about the airport? Oh, by the way, I got a call yesterday. Wilson State Park is not gonna open until the 1st of August. So,
Is it fair, is that canceled too?
well, they're talking. You know, we don't know until, I would say there's a good possibility it will be canceled. But, you know, we're gonna have to wait and see. You know, the order is not gonna be lifted till the end of May. And they need to be lining up things and they don't know, is it gonna be extended or whatever? Makes it really hard for anybody to plan anything. And they don't wanna plan something that's not gonna have a good turnout, because they can't afford that either. The rest of the state parks are going to be opening the 22nd of June, maybe. So there's a lot of traffic that goes to and from there. Harry?
Jack, one thing I forgot to mention here is my board is in budget negotiations right now. And we have to look at that airport contribution also. Now, no decision's been made, but it's on the table. We're looking at taking pretty serious revenue sharing hit.
You heard how much, or just?
Well, we've already taken a hit for 30 some thousand, and likely that's going to continue. Our revenue sharing comes 6 times a year. It's 410,000, breaks down to roughly 64,000 every 2 months. And right off the bat, it's gonna be 50% off on the next one. And assuming that the economy does not come back quickly, it will be a percentage therein off for every payment thereon. Yesterday, we listened to a podcast, actually a webinar, and it was stated by experts at the university level that Michigan's unemployment status will not be equal to what it was pre-COVID until summer of 2022. That being the case, if we're looking at permanently reduced revenue sharing, we're in pretty good shape. We're going to survive, but we got to look at everything. And the airport is on the table at my budget hearings as well as yours. So,
Aren't the townships revenue sharing protected by statute?
only to a point. You have what's mandated and what statute and what's constitutional. We aren't protected fully, no.
I believe the revenue sharing is based on, actual
Sales tax
sales activity. So if sales activity goes down, our revenue sharing goes
has to
down.
go down,
So it's a benefit of the community. If you can support more businesses and people come there and buy more things, more goods, that does increase our, but through all this downturn, if things slow down, I don't think the state has any choice but to reduce the revenue sharing, because they're not getting the revenue from us. They get a portion of it, we get a portion of it.
As we crunch our numbers, we have another budget hearing next Tuesday, and as we crunch our numbers, if need be, somebody's going to, and my board's going to have to step up and recommend that we look at the airport.
Well, the projections are by the end of May, the shortfall in the state budget's gonna be between $3 and $4 billion.
Yep.
And that's if things come roaring back. If it doesn't, it's gonna get worse.
If there's a second round of COVID, it could be disastrous. Our road commission, which has nothing to do with this one, but our road commission's looking at a pretty good hit. The problem with that is that the road commission, say the road commission takes a hit of 30%. Well, by logic, people think, well, that means you're gonna do 30% less projects. No, it means all your projects are gone. Because the project money's at the top. So all the extra work, all the good stuff comes right off that top.
I think that what you mentioned, when you talk about the fair and stuff, I think it's a natural progression that as some areas of the country and of the state start to open up, if things start roaring back, there's gonna be a big push for other areas to say, hey, they did it, we gotta get going. Right, wrong, or indifferent, when you're in a survival mode, once things start to open up, it's gonna be a wave, and people are gonna say, hey, I can drive down or over here and go to a fair, go to something, but I can't in my community or my state. It's just one of the things, it's the nature of the beast. You're gonna say, hey, I can't lose that revenue we gotta get our stuff back open, or we're gonna lose it to that town, to that state, to whatever. There's a natural progression there that's gonna happen. People are gonna have to try it. They're gonna, you just have to.
Well, that's why you're getting the protest in that. See, Ohio and Illinois and them are more liberal than we have. They've allowed more things to open, but, I hope things come roaring back. I hope you're right.
Well, I'm not saying they'll roar back, but obviously if all of a sudden certain businesses start opening in Clare, but I'm just using Clare and Harrison, be no different than Michigan and another state. If they start opening things up, people are gonna get in their car and go down there and do it. I can't do it here, but I can do it there. I think a lot of that was like the fireworks thing. You could cross the border and buy fireworks, and they were getting all this revenue from it. Michigan wasn't. Okay, so they allow us to start buying fireworks. It's like, you gotta jump on the bandwagon at some point or you're gonna lose. And I think the COVID thing's gonna be the same way. Once areas start to open up, that's gonna start that wave. Is it gonna come back 100%? Probably not, but there's gonna be that incentive to say, hey, they're opening back up and they're making money and we're not. We gotta get some of those people. We can't afford to have our people drive down there and go spend their money there. We need to offer that here. So it's gonna be that wave that starts the progression back the other direction. And there's gonna be, like you say, there's gonna be protests and say, well, if I can go to Ohio and do it, I should be able to do it here.
Yeah, who knows? Okay, where are we at here, folks?
I'm gonna put together, is all the discussion,
Any more discussion on this?
I'd like to put a motion together that encompasses all of the recommendations from all the avenues we've received in that.
Can we list them, write them down, or?
Yep, I'm gonna call them out.
Okay.
Yep,
All right.
We can't vote on this officially because this will have to be voted on in our actual meeting.
no,
We can.
No, we can
Okay.
right now.
Yeah.
Are you making an actual motion, or are you
I am making an actual motion.
propose a motion? You're gonna just do it, okay. So talk slowly, please.
Yep.
Do you have it wrote out so you can repeat it, or?
I'm taking the suggestions off of the sheets,
Okay.
so I'm gonna read them out this way. A majority, I think that we need to take the suggestions of the county administrator, definitely. And a lot of what Tracy has given are on all three suggestion avenues. So, I guess I'd like to make a motion for budget adjustments. To start with, number one, the 10% reduction in each department budget.
Well, what do we got, we want to comment, do we do on each one, or wait till we get to the end?
It's all in one motion, all these changes. The 10% reduction in each department budget. The layoff of the part-time office employee at the animal shelter. Layoff of the payroll clerk. The removal of the $10,000 from the airport. The elimination of court security, keeping in mind that the bailiffs would be needed for the court session. Elimination of the cleaning contract and pursue a modified cleaning schedule for bathrooms and hallways. That is my motion.
Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Is that Mark?
Yes.
Okay. Moved by Dale, seconded by Mark to put in a motion of these Everybody get clear what he's suggesting now? Discussion?
I have a question, man.
Okay.
This came up in finance yesterday, some of these were, we kind of mentioned, on that 10% reduction, does it make a difference, like some departments say it's got a $500,000 or $200,000 or $300,000 budget, maybe another one only has like a 10,000 or 20 or 30 or 40. Is 10% gonna be more restrictive on a low budget office compared to a high budget office? Just asking that question for
Well, here's the thing with the 10%, is that it's the only way to evenly do it across each department. It's the only fair way to do it is a percentage wise. Granted, a smaller department's gonna have less of a loss than a larger department. But, you know, other than looking at crazy formulas and stuff like that, the only real way to do it and keep it so it's fair is to do it just a straight percentage.
Now, I would ask you, some of them have already made moves to cut that.
Yes,
Would
you know,
that
like-
be considered into it?
Right, like Tracy had mentioned about the prosecutor's office and stuff like that, so I mean, there's already been probably the 10%.
I think the veteran, he's got back also.
Some of them have
Yes,
already
the
made the
veterans
cuts.
is already, you know.
So it wouldn't be from this day forward, they gotta cut 10% more. We're
Right,
talking about.
that's
the
something
ones that
Tracy is gonna have to track.
They've
and make
already
sure.
made cuts that can be factored in.
Yes.
So then that changes this whole sheet.
Yeah, because like your furloughs would take into account that 10%, part of that 10%.
And
Is it
then,
10% of current budget?
10%.
So if you've already cut 10% from your this current year's budget in recent past, then you've already met the 10%.
It's gonna have to be 10% of what we have right now for the budget, what's left
It's what was
10% of as of today.
as of today.
I have another question, Jack.
Okay,
Number 2 on Tracy's, recommendation here, lay off the last 2 people that were hired, $80,000 savings, is that gonna be, that's not relevant if we take the 10% across the board on all of them, or look at that as a,
Well,
pool, like, do we do that also or not?
I don't know who the last 2 people were that
I
we
don't
hired.
either.
hey, you don't wanna take them out of one department. Was it my office at the last two? I can't afford 2 people.
one in hers and one in equalization.
Okay. Well, with the 10% reduction in, let's say, the clerk's office, she's gonna have to figure it out. And we really can't say who each department's gonna lay off. I mean, that's gotta be left up to the department manager
Right.
or the elected official to do that. That's their responsibility, that's their job, it's their department.
Right.
We're the numbers people.
So we discussed before this percentage across the board. And in my office, I have, I don't know, 5 or 6 budgets. If I take 10% out of each budget, then I'm losing 5 or 6 people, which is not, it can't
we're
happen.
talking about.
If I can do a whole, my whole budget as a whole, not each department as it's laid out in this sheet. My abstract department is only people. There's nothing else in it. If I take 10% out of it, there's a person, the register of deeds, the elections, my courts, they're all, the 10% is all people. I'm
Well, it's
losing 5 or 6
2,000 out of
people.
the abstract.
Right, and it's only people, so I lose a person. Period.
I mean,
It's me and an
maybe you look
employee.
at, you know, the avenues like we had looked at before at the county of cross-training within departments and stuff like that. I mean, that is an avenue.
It is an avenue, and there are other people that can do the abstract, but that person also works in 2 other departments. So that one person works in 3 departments. So I cut that one person, I lose it in 3 departments, and then in that, so she's out of abstract, but she also works in register of deeds. So I cut a person out of abstract for $2,000, and I still have to cut a person out of register of deeds. That's 2 people that I have. Then I have no one to work in register of deeds, is what I'm saying.
Make it work.
About, you can't make it work, I'm telling you, it's a mandated office, you're telling me I have to cut 2 people, I have 2 people, there's no one to work it.
Dale, I guess I was thinking when we talk about cutting 10% out of, they can, some of those budgets, they can probably, fully run, but they're gonna have to cut 10% out of the total. That's kind of what I was thinking. You're not, you're talking about
10% out of what budget we have left this year.
out of
I think that's what Jeff is saying.
everything.
We've got
They
5
would
months
be
left
like-
in this budget.
But, everything,
I think
in
what he's
your
trying to say
budget-
is like Lori has multiple departments, but she's one department head, so it'd be 10% of one department.
that's kind
That'd
of
be
what
like
I'm thinking.
all the departments considered part of one for her. Is that
You
what
just
you're
have to
saying,
come up
Jack?
with 10% across the board and.
Well, that's
a
what I'm asking, because
combination.
if you do each budget, that it's
I think it's
5 or
across the
6
board,
people.
I think that's-
But the math is still the same, 10%
Yeah.
of the whole or 10% of the
Right.
individual.
10% still the same.
Right,
Does that answer? the
it
question?
does, thank you.
I have a comment on cutting 10% out of the budget. Our IT budget is already pretty stretched as it is, so I'm not telling you not to do it, but I just want you guys to know what's gonna happen if you do it. I have 3 options. I can either eliminate an employee, which will leave me with 1 person in IT, me. 2, I can shift the cost of my licensing to another department, make them take a budget cut. Or 3, I can eliminate some software like the VPN that the sheriff uses for all of his squad cars. There's a few software that we can't do without, and if we cut 10%, I've got to do one of those 3 options.
And keeping in mind that if he cuts an employee, that there will be a point in time that we won't have an IT person because somebody's gonna be off with his new baby.
There might be a time when you go to call IT and no one answers if we've got 1 person.
I hear what you're saying, and I don't know what the answer is. I mean, I think probably everybody can make an argument, Jesse, that they can't afford the 10% cut. If there's any way that,
Budget numbers is.
I hate to see you lay off people, but maybe we just can't supply everybody with everything they need, and software and that kind of stuff.
How many people are gonna work here at the county when they're not being paid? Are people willing to work for free?
What are you even talking about? Who?
If we can't make payroll, how many people in your department wanna work for free?
Not many. Would you work for free?
I feel like I'm already doing it. I mean, it's hard decisions,
Oh.
We don't wanna do this, but we have to do it. We don't have a choice. Is it gonna be permanent? We don't know. Nobody can tell. Is it gonna be permanent after this fiscal year? But if I can guarantee you, if we don't do something, when we go looking into next year's budget and we stay on this trajectory, I guarantee you, there's gonna be substantially higher cuts at this next budget. I'm talking, you could lose 4 or 5 people in one department.
Jesse, I guess I hear what you're saying and I understand it, but maybe I hate to see you cut people so that we don't have IT people here. But maybe some of that software or whatever that everyone wants, maybe like the Zoom and all the stuff that's costing us money, we may have to cut back on some of it.
That's one of our options, is we can cut software. One of our big costs that we can cut is NetMotion, for example. The sheriff department might have the option to pick up the tab for it, but that would cut about $7,000 out of the budget. But that would mean that nobody can remote into the county network, including the laptops that are in the squad cars.
Well, I don't want to cut anything that endangers their safety, but maybe there's other things like new computers or something. I don't know. It seems like we spend a lot of money on technology, which, we have to. But we may have to make some cuts in some of the things that we do. What did it cost us to do this?
To do this,
Yeah.
I think we are about What was that, Lori?
Wasn't it 103 a month?
I think it's about 103 a month. But we're required to do this right now because of the Open Meetings Act.
Yep.
Just like a lot of the software that we have, we are required to have that software for a lot of our lien audits and our CGIS requirements. We are going to be out of spec with what we're required to do if we don't have some of these softwares. So that's, I'm not even saying don't do this. I'm just letting you guys know what's going to happen if we do it.
Well, I understand. I understand. So, anyway, anything that we don't have to have, you're gonna have to cut back on, that's all. I wanna echo what Dale said. Like I said the last meeting, I didn't sign up for this. I made one big mistake, I ran one term too long. You people would be dealing with it, but not me. I feel just horrible about laying people off. I mean, that's just, when you start telling people, and especially pushing them into a system that is just absolutely, of course, no government agency seen this coming. But there are people that have been laid off for 2 months that still can't get on the unemployment system.
I have a question, Jack. Let's say on this 10%, some departments are gonna comply. What kind of verification we're gonna have to know if everybody's still doing it?
Well, you know what?
The adjustments will come in.
I hope I'm wrong, but I think there will be some departments out there that will say, screw you, we're just gonna keep spending like we have.
Well, that's my question, what verification are we gonna have?
If something comes before the finance committee that is totally against what we have approved, can it be denied for payment?
Well, I would think that, we're going to have to say, we're just not gonna pay it. I mean, some of that may be, the finance maybe need to be pushed to the full board, so the full board can make that decision. And I would hope and pray that everyone would understand the seriousness of this and say, we're gonna work with you as good as we can. Like Dale said, let's hope this is temporary. Let's hope that the numbers that we're getting off of this, a lot of this is pre-COVID-19. That's the scary part. What's coming in now is down the road a little bit. Yeah.
But
So,
part of this equation that we haven't really talked about, and we know it's been an issue, is revenue that never comes through. So if our projections are based on projected revenue that we know in the past hasn't come through, that's a double whammy.
Well,
It's kind of like at the end of the last fiscal year when it was like, okay, we'll be okay if everything comes in as expected, but it got to the end, there was a pile of stuff that didn't come in as expected. And so,
and that's what's happening. See, if you look at the budget adjustments we have to do today, under the description, transfer funds from one item to the next, vacations, due to budget shortfall. You look at the next one. Next one says increased expenditures. There's another one that's due to budget shortfall. Here's one, adjustments had to be made for revenues not expected to be received as originally anticipated. So it's revenues that we anticipated in the budget that are not coming to fruition.
well, but the good thing is we're seeing that. All I'm saying is in the past fiscal year, there was a lot of stuff that didn't come to fruition. There was no budget adjustments. It ran right up to the end.
Right, did you see some of these amounts though?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, there's one, revenues not expected to be received as originally anticipated. That's 45,000 just for that one budget.
But they also offset the expenditures on the other
Right.
side.
Right,
And I do believe a lot of those that you have in your packet are COVID related. Those are the ones that I'd asked that they were adjusted. so that we could
Yeah,
get,
there was only one that was covered, showed here. And that was the $4,000.
For more than one COVID-related, Jenny, you pushed these budget adjustments.
yes, the sheriff departments, if you're looking at theirs, they haven't been able to get in more inmates due to COVID in a lot of theirs. Like the $44,000 one would have to do with that. I'm not saying it's complete, but the majority of it has to do with COVID.
Okay. Any more discussion on it?
We do have some public comments that came in.
Okay.
You know, like for public comment time?
Yeah, let's wait till
Yeah.
public comment. Yeah,
Or are they public comments or are they comments on, just
well, roll call, Laurie, please.
Majewski,
Yes.
Fitzpatrick,
Yes.
Strauss,
yes.
Hoagland.
Yeah.
Haskell,
Yeah.
Kleinhardt.
Yes. Okay, Tracy, start the process with them, notify them,
Now, I'd also like to make a second motion
okay?
that we pursue, or we allow the department heads to pursue offering of early retirement with a 1-year continuation of their health care benefit, the ones that would like. In keeping in mind that this is a position that you can let go, that you do not have to backfill. Understand what I just said?
That you can't backfill.
That's right. I mean, you're not gonna allow somebody to take an early retirement if
Right.
you just gotta go out and hire somebody to
Right.
replace it. I think we should let that ball roll. An
I would say
early
to those
retirement,
eligible to retire.
yes,
I'll second that.
with 1 year paid healthcare.
Okay, moved by Dale, seconded by Jeff to offer a retirement package with 1 year insurance paid, contingent on the department's not replacing that person.
Yes. Keep it in mind that the person still has to pay their portion of the healthcare.
Discussion?
What if the department collectively can't, I'm just throwing this out there, can do with one less person? So the person being gotten rid of, or, leaving, that position has to be filled, but collectively, they can come up with the same savings by overall reduced.
I think it muddies the, yeah.
I'm just saying, if you're eliminating one person out of an entire department, you have to shift people around. That's different than saying, I gotta keep the same number of people after this person retires, so I have to hire somebody. But if I can retire somebody, shift people around, cover that key position, but reduce the total number of employees.
I would like to say what Dale said. All of this can be changed going forward. When the new board comes in, or you people that are still here can say, okay, times look better, we can do something different. This is not a chiseled in stone motion, but this is a motion that does the best we can to fix a budget shortfall at the present time.
Tracy, did anybody email you retirement offers or no? And one employee asked for 2 years paid health insurance. And that's what, it was $110,000 in wages to let her go. And what did we say, $10,000 in insurance costs?
Single subscriber, I believe, was roughly 88,000, between 8 and 9,000.
So do you want them to counter offer what you're offering, or this is it, you're not?
No, this is the offer.
You're
That's my
not-
motion. This is the offer.
I second it.
No negotiations on it?
No.
All right,
Okay.
roll call, please. Oh, No, that's another one. Roll call.
Majeski,
Yes.
Haskell,
Yeah.
Strauss,
Yes.
Fitzpatrick,
Yes.
Hoagland,
Yes.
Steinhardt.
Yes.
Okay.
Lori, kind of my thinking on the whole 1 year too is, hopefully we get through this, and I'd hate to have a department that couldn't hire somebody for 2 years because we let someone go on early retirement, and, you know, kind of the process here is not to pay anybody insurance, and then have to hire somebody and pay them insurance also. So I feel 1 year hopefully that,
Well, that would be the agreement, that you wouldn't retire, so you're really saving over $100,000 more by paying 2 years versus nothing, not paying, not doing it at all. It just doesn't make sense to me. You could save 100,000 versus nothing.
I'd also like to see us have a decision on the courthouse cleaning by our next Board of Commissioners meeting.
Okay.
Because, I mean, you're eliminating the cleaning. I mean, we don't want to have a lapse here and have stuff start to get out of control.
So you're gonna check with AWOL and
Yeah.
see if they will clean the hallways?
Yeah.
Okay.
We'll be taking on my office will be taking on the mail run, so we'll pick the mail up and between us, we can sort and deliver.
Okay.
I have a question about the 10% cut. What would you like me to do with my election budget?
I did put a note on there that I didn't believe you'd be able to cut that just simply because we gotta do elections.
So that's out of the equation?
Yeah.
Leonard?
Where are we sitting with Middle Michigan? I know we agreed to take them on and they were going to provide.
They've got a contract till the end of the year, so you'll have to deal with that during.
But they were gonna provide.
We don't have any
They're
money
not in.
budget for them.
They're not in right now.
Well,
They were gonna get re-upped if they come through, but they didn't.
They did not get.
So
They're not.
when we did our last budget, we put them in.
No.
We didn't?
No.
Oh, okay.
I thought
We
did.
kept it out contingent upon if they could come through with additional funds.
Okay, I thought we paid them.
No.
Terry?
Jack, I have a question for Tracy.
Okay.
Tracy, if this as approved, as you're looking at it, does it do anything positive for fund balance?
Yeah, some of this would go into the fund balance, but.
So it'll, the fund balance go closer towards the 16% target?
Not,
Not a whole lot.
no, not a whole lot, but it's.
At
gonna
least
put
something positive.
Yes.
Okay,
It's a step
good
in the
enough.
right direction.
And then the second question was, I missed the meeting where you talked about 4-H and MSU extension. What was the final take on those two? I missed that.
Millages will be placed on
Pardon?
millages will be placed on the ballot,
For both?
yes.
Oh,
The August election.
so then you're not going to fund?
Yeah. maybe.
As of this point, we're not gonna be able to.
Okay. The 4-H and MSU will not be funded unless the millage does pass. Okay. I
They
understand.
just don't have the money right now.
That did take my question.
Jesse?
We had a couple of questions.
Thank you, Terry.
The first one was on the voluntary retirement. Let's see, Cindy's asking, is there an option for a volunteer retiree to pay the second year's premium to stay on the county's insurance?
That would be Cobra. She'd have to Cobra that year.
Cobra's more.
Yeah.
And
So
the-
can they do Cobra after they've been off, after they've been retired for a year?
I do believe that they get offered that Cobra as long as they are on, and that's the other thing. We have retiree health care, but unless they take it when they retire, they're not allowed to stay, they're not allowed to get it after that. But, I can check into the Cobra question, for sure.
I thought maybe the way she was asking it is that if we paid it for a year and then she had to cut the check for the same amount we would have paid,
Mhm.
is kind of the way I was
Yes,
interpreting her. Okay,
Is that how Cobra works?
Well, I'm not saying Cobra, I'm just
Cobra's
saying,
actually more, it costs them more
Oh,
to
so
be
it-
on Cobra. But to be honest with you, I don't, if they wanted to cut the check to pay for the insurance and it's not costing the county anymore, then
The only thing we'd have to find out is if that's legal with that.
right.
So say she wrote the check for 8,500 at the beginning of her second year, then she would stay on the, okay,
I can check into it.
The only thing is,
You check into
we
that.
assume the risk,
what risk are you assuming?
I'm sure that's what the insurance company will look at.
I would think the insurance is gonna want him going Cobra.
Well, what we could do is, it would be, we would pay the second year, but she would reimburse us the money, so we don't lose any money.
I would,
That's how.
I would be worried about setting precedents.
Yeah, that is true.
I think we just need to ask the question. I mean, it's a legitimate question to find out whether, because if that opens up the possibilities for people to retire that normally wouldn't, and that has a positive impact on our budget, moving in the right direction, I think we need to explore it.
I'm checking into it right now.
Thank you.
I know insurance companies like young people. Okay,
But you gotta remember, insurance is a business. They want enrollees. So a lot of times they'll figure out a way to try to keep,
they
the
want
numbers up.
enrollees that don't cost them money.
well, right, but
So
Do you
the
have more
older we
public
get,
comment?
Yeah, we did have one.
the older we get, the more it costs.
But they can't discriminate,
They can't
either they're gonna
discriminate.
allow it to happen or not, they
Neither
can't say,
can we.
well, we will or not, so.
But they do. They do. You get on, you try to get to a certain age and pick up a Medicaid, we have Medicare, and then you wanna get a second insurance to cover it, see what it costs you. That's discriminating against your age. Young people can get it for a third on the Obamacare than what it costs an older person. Okay,
There was one other big comment here on the cleaning. Michelle mentioned without screening people coming into the courthouse, checking for weapons, I'm not in favor of trustees cleaning at night because they could pick up weapons or other items dropped in public spaces for them, increasing the threat inside our building and the jail. And then John responded, why not hire one part-time person to clean the halls? And there were a few other comments earlier in the session that were kind of asking similar things, so.
well, we've already got Tracy in the process of
You're-
checking with AWOL.
And you were gonna read all those other comments during public comment, right?
I'm gonna try to.
Okay, are we all set then?
Sir,
He has more public comment.
Well, we're
Yeah,
not
we're
to
not
the
public
public
Oh, I
comment.
thought we were at public comment.
No, we're
One
still in
more
the
motion.
discussion.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
Okay.
So,
Any more
we
motions
had our
before the
motion.
budget adjustments?
where are we at right now? How much have we cut out exactly?
We would have to figure that.
Well, the 10% we said was 220,406.52.
That
I
wasn't
think that's
accurate.
conservative too.
That wasn't
Yeah, that's
accurate.
just a round
Then you're
figure.
gonna take another 44,000, another 25,700, another 10. 84,000, Getting us up close to.
Okay,
So I take the budget adjustments?
yep, would you do the budget adjustments? Dale?
Budget adjustments, to approve budget adjustments 2062, 2063, 2064, 2065, 2068, 2069, and 2070, 2071. In the amounts of $300, $7,800, $25,000, $4,381.24, $44,400, $2,000, $44,209.96, and $29,496.90.
Second, please.
I'll second.
Moved by Dale, seconded by David to approve the budget adjustments. Roll call, any more discussion? Roll call, please.
Majesti,
Yes.
Hoagland,
Yes.
Pascal,
Yes.
Fitzpatrick,
Yes.
Strauss,
Yeah.
Kleinhardt.
Yes.
Jack, I got a question before we move on to public comment.
Okay.
Now, question. I know there's a potential of some grants that people are gonna wanna pursue. We wanna make sure that if it's a grant you're pursuing, there's a match. You're gonna have to leave it out. We won't have the money to match, so there's no sense in pursuing that grant.
That's a good point.
What are your thoughts?
I thought we had that if someone was to pursue a grant, they had a match, they had to bring it in front of the board.
Yeah, but I mean,
Grants in general have to be brought before the board.
yeah, if we're cutting, there's no sense in pursuing anything if we're cutting. I mean, if there's a 20%, 30%, 50% match, I mean,
So is that for everyone, or is it just out of the general fund? Because senior services can get grants and cover it out of their funds.
senior services is separate from the general fund.
And I
It
think.
always has been.
I know, that's what I'm asking, because you make a generalization, just like travel and expense, you make it general, but then, oh, except for this,
When,
except
when
for
we're,
that.
when we're talking budget adjustments, we're dealing strictly with the county budget. We're not including all the other entities. It's because they're separate. It's,
So if
it's
Michelle
strictly-
had a grant and could take it out of her OUIL fund, then that's separate, and she could do that. Is that out of the general fund, or is that she's got a different fund, or OUIL fund, right? Okay, that's what I was thinking. Because there are other offices besides senior services have other funds.
Okay,
We just gotta approve grants, make it simple.
I think, I agree with, I think the gist of what you're saying is that I wouldn't want anybody expending time and effort that we can't afford or don't have
Yeah.
on something that.
some of these grants take a lot of time.
Yeah.
And then you pursue it, and then you come to us for approval, and then, well, we find out we've got a 25% match or a 30% match, and now we say no, and now they've wasted all that time. I mean,
you know, I may be wrong, but I think it's worrying about grants is gonna be moot point. I can't imagine that there's gonna be a lot of grants handed out over the next
I
foreseeable
wouldn't think so
future.
either.
The government, every government agency I know is,
But the problem with all this stuff has been, it's like the elephant in the room. The state apparently has been giving us money that they don't have to fund things that we can't afford. The state's been going into debt deeper and deeper all the time. We can't do that. We can't go into debt. So a lot of our spending sometimes is based on all this money that the state keeps shoveling to through grants and all this stuff. But ultimately you look at it and say, where are they getting the money? They're not getting the money. They're just going deeper in debt. So then we spend the money, and then when they finally pull back on the purse strings, we start going busted. It's like we became dependent on that money to operate, but it was money collectively as taxpayers we didn't have.
the state has a balanced budget amendment. They cannot go into debt. They have to balance out. The federal government does not. They can borrow money and borrow money and borrow money. Now, that's going to be the problem. The state has got to come up with a budget. And that budget time, you think it's ugly down there now? You haven't seen anything yet. They got a $1.2 billion rainy day fund, which is chicken feed compared to what's gonna happen.
right? Sorry, Jack, I got off course here.
So,
If I may address the board,
are we done here, Lori? Did we?
Yeah,
did
there
we
was
vote
no,
on-
there was no motion with what Dale said.
No, it was
It's
just,
just a-
Well, no, did we vote on the budget?
We did.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, public comment. Go ahead.
Under Sheriff Mejanowski, if I may, regarding grants, Lori Phelps helped us write some grants for corrections and road deputy positions. I would assume logically, we're still okay with going forward with those, even if there is the 25% match, because the the positions were approved to backfill, it's ultimately going to save us money. May we continue to move forward on those then?
Yeah, the sheriff's department, we said we weren't gonna touch at this point.
I know, but they're grants, so I still need your blanket approval to fulfill the requirements, so Lori and I can wrap them up if we were, granted the awards. Seems like a no-brainer. I mean, obviously, it's gonna save us money. I'm assuming you guys are good with it, but I owe to bring it up.
Hey, Dwayne, hear
Yeah.
me? There's no match with those grants that we did for the sheriff's department.
Awesome. Thanks, Lori.
Anyone else? Go ahead, Jesse.
All right, I hope I get everyone's comments here. If I miss any of them, let me know, guys. But I'm gonna kind of split them up into two sections here. The first one is on cleaning. Steven Sense asked, how often is the cleaning crews cleaning the hallways, daily or every other day?
Every day.
Every day.
Not right now because we don't have as many people in here. They're just coming in and cleaning where people have been.
But before the shutdown, they were
Correct.
cleaning every day.
Yeah.
Don Van Bon asks, you just discussed the shortage of staffing in the corrections department. Who do you propose monitor the inmates during the cleaning?
We're not gonna use inmates.
When we're not using trustees.
Okay. That would kind of answer Bill's comment of just to piggyback on Don's comment. Wouldn't there be a concern with inmates having access to personal information, medical HIPAA, court records, lien within the county offices? But Stacy asked, is it possible to keep a court security officer over for a couple of hours to supervise trustees? But that answers that too. Some budget comments. Don asked, does the 10% cut include the commissioner's budget as well?
Yeah.
Kim asked, will the budget adjustments waiting to be approved today be included in the 10% cuts?
Well,
I would think so, from this day on.
You said all the cuts that have already been made, like Michelle's employee, that, so prior to this, you said would count towards the 10%.
the budget adjustments were
That-
all sheriff's
Kim
department
Davis?
stuff.
Well,
Yes.
that listed includes sheriff's department budgets.
Were we not doing the sheriff's department for the 10%?
No.
We said road patrol. Yeah, the
There's
list
some-
is on there, but the only thing that's on there is courthouse security. That's the only thing that was taken out that I can see. So, yeah.
Kenworthy D asked, would these be layoffs or furloughs?
It,
I think that
the-
would be up to the individual department.
yeah, it's gonna be up to the department head, but I would think there would be layoffs.
What was that, Jesse? I'm sorry.
Kenworthy D, I think that might be Debbie. Rudy said, I'm assuming the part-time clerk / secretary that is being laid off from my department is going to be my 10%.
That would be, yes, because that was the discussion just
Yep.
now.
Yep.
Yeah.
Kim Davis asked, where does the county stand at this time regarding having to take a loan to meet payroll?
No loans. Guys agree?
At this time, there's none.
Okay.
Besides what we already have, but I'm not saying we might not need it in the future, depending on what happens with the state.
Kim Davis asked, who is going to be responsible for the role and accounts payable when the remaining employee is off for whatever reason, sick time, vacation, personal time?
I'm figuring that out.
I would have a similar question in the IT department as well if I did have to get rid of someone.
Okay.
Rudy said we need 2 IT people, please. Annette said I have to agree, we do need both IT. Bob Dawson said some grants also have a time limit for applying. And Michelle asked, are the courts included in the 10% cut to the budgets?
Yes.
And unless I missed anybody, that looks to be the public comments. We did just have one just now pop in from Don. He said, we have heard commissioners several times asking for recommendations on cutting the budget. Are all of these recommendations included in Tracy's proposal? Or is the board only accepting her recommendations alone and ignoring the other possible recommendations?
I'll answer that. I took in consideration all the suggestions that were brought. And all from each individual entity that suggested budget cuts, I took some from each one of those and combined it.
Can I
Dwayne
ask
just
if-
asked-
Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry, I thought you were done.
Sorry. Dwayne just asked, so court security will be cut in its entirety or just the screener in the 30,000s?
Other than the bailiffs, I thought.
Are we in public comment?
Yes.
We
Can
are.
I just ask really quick, according to Executive Order 2020-70, there are some parts of the county that are going to be opening, such as Register of Deeds and construction. So I'm assuming building and electrical. Do we have something on how we're going to do that? I mean, is it only going to be appointments? They're going to meet outside? Are we opening the courthouse? What is it? How are we going to do that? Does anybody have any ideas yet?
I am in the process, and I was gonna bring this up, I'm in the process of preparing a COVID plan, just simply because we have to have one for the courthouse, and how that's going to look.
This starts Thursday.
Right.
Doesn't Jerry Becker have that? He sent me a guide to reopening through
Yes.
COVID for
Jerry and I
businesses,
are working
so-
on that together, but he told me not to put it before the board until this board meeting.
So yeah, my question, I guess, is, if people are going to start coming into the courthouse for registered deeds and construction, I'm assuming other people are going to come in, or who would be monitoring that? So does that mean all of our offices are going to somewhat open if some people are coming into those? I guess that's the point I'm trying to get at. Should we start preparing our office to open?
I think that we should just wait to see what the governor's gonna do.
Governor
with all the
did. She said-
restrictions and stuff.
She didn't tell us how to do it. She just said we have to do it on
Yeah.
Thursday.
I mean, we're gonna have to evaluate it and see what the risk is to the county.
So you can't do them by appointments or anything like that, I'm assuming.
That's what Jenny's asking, or is that
Well,
how everything?
you know, if the governor says they've got to be open,
Yeah.
I think she's saying they've got to come in and be open. Wouldn't you think that's what it means?
You get them open.
I don't
and
know
mark
what
it and-
Lori-
She's already said, you know, by appointment only,
Right.
and now she's changing that. So
Yeah, I don't
assume
know,
she's open.
Is Lori Phelps on, where maybe she could address if constructions are coming back, what maybe they're gonna do for permits? Are they gonna have people come in? I don't know. I'm assuming she probably has something thought out already.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Yes, we actually have been doing by appointments and online for permits because the residential construction starts back up on the 7th. And we have to have a plan in place, especially with senior services and the construction department, limiting the amount of people coming in and out. So I have to have it actually approved by the state. So I've got that I almost have put together, but it's going to, it's pretty in depth, and it's something that I'm going to have to discuss with the board. We're not having people in the building right now, but we are going out to meet them. So that's what it looks like for us right at this time.
And my register of deeds is by appointment only, and they have to come in the building. We can't keep them out if they're gonna use my office. They're doing online now, but she's telling me I have to allow them in now.
You got spit shields and stuff though. built
They
right
know
on
they
them
have to
windows.
come into the office, into the vault,
Oh,
do their searching.
So the question is, do we need to open up the whole building, or do we open just one entrance?
I was anticipating doing it by appointment. They have to call my office and schedule an
Okay.
appointment with me because last I read, I don't know if it's changed since yesterday,
Right.
I was limited on how many people I could have in there at a time.
Correct. Okay.
So for me, I,
Oh, Judge Farrell just responded on our chat that he was notified by the Gladwin commissioners that their courthouse will likely reopen for employees in a limited capacity on Monday, May 11th. So I'm not sure if that's,
We can end up in a situation where we have to have somebody kind of policing that people come in the building and are wearing a mask. I mean, that's gonna be, you guys are in your office and all of a sudden somebody shows up at the, gets in the door, let's say if the building is open. It's all those kind of little things that is somebody have to police how many people are in the building and say, okay, nobody else in the building, or people coming in, you have to have a mask on. I mean, these are all gonna be interesting things that we have to possibly address.
A lawsuit was filed yesterday afternoon by a U.S. representative against the governor's stay-at-home order and that. So they're asking that it be expedited quickly through the courts. So, we don't know yet just what's going to be out there. Are they going to open back up? Does that order say, how do you take it, Laurie? Does the order say you got to open your office up? If you do, then they're going to have to be allowed through the front door.
said by appointment only, so
If
the way
it's-
I've been doing my appointments is
Yeah.
to call and.
Has there been anything changed there by her order? It
I
hasn't
haven't read
changed?
the entire order, I just read the one little snippet about my office.
I would think if they can work that out like you're doing, that would be sufficient,
That's my plan.
With a lot of the orders, like especially if you go out, if you have to go to the auto parts store, grocery store, different places, there's a lot of places that say masks are mandatory, but you go in there and probably 50% of people don't have masks.
Yeah.
Or even the workers themselves, the mask is right here. So you get into that, how far are we gonna have to take this? And because we're a county building, government, I'm just throwing the question out there, are we gonna have to have some restrictions and say, when you come in the building, you have to have a mask on? If we say that, then we have to have somebody policing it. Because obviously you're in your office, you can't be at the door necessarily. If we have to allow people to freely come into the building and do legitimate business, do we then have to police that somehow? Which then puts us back to having some sort of security person here to say, too many in the building, or you can't get in unless mask on.
If it's by appointment, then that.
Well, I'm just saying, but that's if it's by appointment,
And
but
there is no teeth to that. They can't do nothing to you for not wearing a mask, but Lori, they could refuse service on somebody. That's legal. They can refuse service on somebody not wearing a mask. So if they're not wearing a mask and you feel very uncomfortable about it, you have every right to refuse service. And that's written right in the executive order. So,
well, I've heard conflicting reports on that from people.
I got the order right in my office
Well,
because
that's true,
if you can
because
see
yeah.
the circumstance that I'm in.
The building, yep.
So that would be your discretion.
This is Lori Phelps. One of the things that we are working on, and hopefully it'll be done soon, is a mobile-friendly app for building permits, electrical permits, plumbing, mechanical, and addresses, whatnot, so that it's easy to actually do the permit on a phone, as opposed to printing it off online from a computer or coming in. So just some of those changes that we're trying to make to adapt to what's happening and what may be the future.
You gonna send prints via PDF or something that you guys can download and print to look at?
Yes, all of the prints are coming in PDF, all of them.
That's a good idea.
We do have,
Yeah, good. Saves time, money, everything.
it does. Yep, we do have the capability to print, the large plans, but we require all prints to come in a PDF, and we have been doing that for quite some time now, and it works out great.
Good.
Okay, any more public comment?
We do have two comments to come in. Dan Kuhn asked We have numerous labor agreements expiring at the end of the year. Would consideration be given to extending the contracts in order to get through this crisis?
Yes. Yes.
Bill said to everyone, is the county concerned about the liability related to removing the screener after implementing and then removing safety and security measures?
Yes.
And Hart K and Michelle said, without court security, who is going to enforce the capacity and masks? And who is taking temperatures? Who is policing masks? You just cut your security screeners.
Gonna have to be the courts are gonna have to figure out that.
They're gonna have bailiffs,
Yeah.
so the bailiffs can do that. Any more?
Judge Farrell added to his that Gladwin is requiring masks for entry into the building and temperatures of all employees will be taken. So maybe we can ask who's doing that over there?
Go ahead, Tracy, ask them who does that. Okay. Any unfinished business? We covered everything. Any new business? We covered everything.
I had just one thing, our phones keep going out. You know, when we're talking all these cuts and everything, can we get an assessment or a list of everybody that has a phone and getting a stipend for phones? Because we know there's a lot of phones floating around, and we need to take another assessment of that, I think.
Okay.
There was a question, just real quick. There was a question on, I think, one of the recommendations about a phone line we still have for God, I wished I had that written down. It had to do with something with Parks and Rec or something like that.
Oh, yeah, I remember seeing that too.
Oh, we made the adjustment for that.
We already did?
We fixed it, yeah.
Okay.
So, yeah, I mean, if we just do an assessment of all the phones that, you know,
I mean, like, do we really need the one right here?
well, I'm saying cell phones.
Yes, we do need this one.
I'm talking cell phones.
For when we're doing conference calls or and when they're doing, we have attorneys that come in here and use the room for
Okay.
a conference call and they pay for the room or, you know, if anybody.
I'm talking the cell phones, the
Yeah.
stuff that,
Yeah.
I mean, we gotta have phones in here, but there's stipends that are given for phones and
Yeah.
there's phones that have been given to people. Let's just reassess it and make sure that where we stand and we're in good shape.
Yep.
What is our phone bill? Any idea?
No, I don't know what it is. And it's all broke out too, so,
Yeah, it would take you, have to add them all up. That's.
well,
not-
no, it comes in one bill, but we separate them out. I could look up, hold on a second. It's through Clear8.
Do we bid that out? Or is it just one service that does it for the government?
We were with AT&T before, but found that we were able to get a lower rate with
With Verizon.
Clear8. That's the one we're with right now.
How far back was that when we did that?
Oh,
Well, that'd be
That was
quite a
back
ways
when-
before your time, David.
I'd say when I was building inspector, I had a phone. It's been talked about different times, all these phones going off, I just got thinking, what if we really looked at, you know, gotta look at everything, so.
hold on a second. 972 is for a month.
972, almost $1,000.
So
Yep.
12,000 a year
Yeah.
for cell.
That's, no,
No, that's for the
Oh,
county.
that's
for
for that.
Not
phone,
cell phone.
that's
Oh,
for
okay.
regular phones, not cell phones.
$2,000 almost for regular phones.
Mhm.
Okay, what's the cell phones?
I don't know that yet. Because, some people get them through the county and some get them as a stipend.
Right, so if we can just get an assessment of
I'll get
who all has phones that we're providing them to, and then who's
Yep.
getting stipends, and
Yep.
just reassess it, it's probably fine, but
I can do that.
1,000's not that bad for the whole county. I don't think, for landlines.
No?
that's pretty good.
You got your hair, thanks.
Okay.
You didn't know
Okay. Thank you, everyone. We're adjourned.
Oh, stay there. I made this for Brock.
first.
Yeah.